So make a start just by sitting comfortably without looking for sort of correct posture or anything like that. Just literally sitting comfortably. Take a few moments to just let your attention come into your body. Maybe notice your breathing, or it could be the weight of your body in the chair, feet on the floor. So that these things slowly begin to anchor our attention, to draw our attention into this awareness of our body as it is right now. And becoming more aware of the posture means that it's something that we can begin to work with gently, but it also means that there's this sort of quietening, this settling in our minds. And this is something we can come back to as we go through the session at any point, really. We want to go further than this. We want to be able to try and refine our posture, refine our movements, of course. But it's all done very gently. Nothing should be forced. And particularly experienced people, like yourselves, just take into account the fact of where you are rather than where you think you ought to be. You know you can do certain things, but it might just be that at the moment some of those things are not reasonable for the body. So starting very simply as always with this little tapping exercise, rubbing your hands together, tapping over your face. And then over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder and your arm. And then on the other side. And onto the upper part of the chest. Down to your belly. So the posture that we're looking for is ideally that we can be forward in the chair and not have to rely on the back of the chair to support our back, but as always, sit back as and when you need to. So here, my feet down on the floor below my knees, tilting forward slightly so that your weight comes more to the middle of that space defined by your feet and your hips. It's a square. Feel a little bit of weight in your feet, about a third of your weight in your feet, gently pushing your feet down into the floor. Try not to resist that in your knees or your ankles. But most of your weight back in your hips. So your upper body is kind of held between these two supports. Sometimes this is likened to flying a kite with two strings. You can sometimes get a sense of the kite being kind of held, as it were, between the two strings. The weight sinking downwards so that you're carrying less weight in the upper part of your body, and becoming aware that your back can support the front of your body. So as we realise that, just try not to pull your belly in or tighten in your chest. And before we actually start to move, just this little exercise that helps us to get a sense for what we call releasing or yielding, letting go in Tai Chi. Starting with the shoulders, very gently. It's not meant to be a strong exercise. You push your shoulders up and then slowly let them down. And it's that downward movement to focus on initially. Just becoming aware of what it feels like when you allow your shoulders to drop, what it feels like in the muscles of your chest and your upper back. And this is the the sensation that I generally use the term releasing, but you could think of softening, yielding, letting go. These are all valid sort of ways of describing the sensation taken from the same Chinese character. And what we want to do is to become familiar with this feeling so that we can bring an intentional quality to it. Then try this around the middle of your body. Pull your belly in, gently tighten your back and your hips, and then once again release it. I find when I do this in the middle of my body that really there are two things that are significant. One is actually when I do this in the middle of my body, I can get that feeling of releasing all through my body. And the other is that I start to feel my weight dropping. I feel heavier in the chair. So this is rooting down. This is our weight, our centre of gravity dropping. And we often understand that in terms of knees bending, but actually in many ways it's more appropriate, initially at least, to think in terms of this releasing feeling around your hips and centre of the body. And gradually, with that awareness that we've begun to develop, realising that when we do this, we still have a structure. We can think of the skeleton supporting our body from within. So this is a really useful exercise to remind ourselves of, and to try and cultivate an ability to maintain an intention to release through the body, so that this quality starts to infuse all of the movements that we make. So now, just going through the preparation, going through the different parts of the body, starting with your head, gently turning. One of the common sort of ways of describing these movements is that they feel as though your body's being massaged internally. This points us at a different approach to movement, and I think it's one of the characteristics of Tai Chi that makes it a little bit different to standard exercise. Not necessarily better, but it means that when we approach movements in Tai Chi, we begin to approach with what we might think of as a different mentality. And then hands in front of your shoulders. One thing we can do, and one way we can use that intention to release, is as we move, almost inevitably, we identify tight spots, blocks in the movement. And sometimes, by no means always, but sometimes when we reach those, just imagining those areas, experiencing that feeling of releasing, can have a physical effect. Probably most effectively on the contracting stages. So with this exercise, for instance, say you're a bit tighter in your upper back, then looking for that releasing feeling as your elbows drop. And then going forwards, we have to be patient with these ideas. They build up slowly. They become familiar over a period of time. Your hands come down to your sides and just rotating your arms. Another approach to those blocks is to use particular images. We talk about moving like water or through water. That can affect our way of moving. I sometimes have an image with those areas that feel a bit tight or blocked of imagining a rock in the bed of a river, and the way the water flows over that rock, gradually smoothing it off, wearing it down. And then winding around. Another image that some people find really useful is that you imagine you can breathe directly into that area, and with the out breath, generating that feeling of releasing, of letting go. It's not the image that's important, it's whether it's useful to you. And then back the other way. And you may well find that different images suit you better at different times in different circumstances. And let your hands rest. So then releasing in your hips and lower back, feeling that slightly stronger feeling, and we can begin to feel that there's a result, there's a push up from that, and that just pushes the pelvis forwards, tilting the pelvis forward, so more of the weight goes into the feet. Same kind of idea in the feet, they get compressed and then they expand and push us back. So in particular with the upward movement, rather than feeling that you have to strain in the upper part of your body, neck or your shoulders or your back, to pull yourself up, try and feel that you're pushing yourself up, a bit like if you're in a rocking chair in a way, you push against the ground. Feeling that connection that is made that way from your feet to your knees, to your shoulders, to the whole of your upper body. Always remember that no one idea, no one view of these movements, no one image is ever going to encompass the whole experience. Turning slightly so that now more of your weight goes into one leg, and just seeing if you can get a sense for the distinction between one leg and another. We would call the leg with most of the weight the full leg as opposed to the empty leg. And the same thing between our hips as well, turning the other way and moving. So sometimes we can think about this very dynamic quality of the weight moving as a transition through different parts of the body from full to empty. In the chair, that's going to involve feet and hips. Standing, when we come to that, it's going to be between the 2 feet mostly. So now going forwards, turning in your hips to take the movement across to the other foot, rolling back into the hip on that side, turning to the opposite hip, and forwards. So feeling that the movement in the upper part of your body is generated not by, again, lots of effort, straining in the upper part of the body, but that your upper body is being moved by this transition from full to empty. And then go back the other way. And then come back to this central position, and with one foot, raise up the foot, push out, put your heel down, lower the ball of the foot and gently press into the floor, planting the foot and back. And then plant the foot and now move the weight in. We're told in Tai Chi that the movement is rooted in the feet, this downward movement producing the upward movement, transmitted through our legs, changing sides, guided, directed through the centre of the body, that area of hips and waist. So this becomes a strong point of attention, planting the foot. We've turned slightly that way. and then expressed in the upper body and arms. Letting your weight follow. Don't be too quick to let your weight follow. And then alternating from side to side. Planting the foot down. Feel how your body accommodates this. You turn slightly, your weight moves slightly. These exercises, particularly with the feet and the weight moving, are worth practicing so they become very familiar. They're the foundation for the art. They're always present in one way or another. Come back. So now bringing the upper body back into the movement, but trying to retain again that sense of what is happening in the lower part of the body, in the same way that, I don't know, if you were riding a bike, you'd be aware in the back of your mind that you were pedaling, but you wouldn't necessarily be consciously thinking about it. So, hands down to your sides, turn the palms of your hands forwards, bird folds its wings, your weight moves forwards and your arms rotate. Retaining a quiet feeling in your arms. Forward, there's a very dynamic feel. So if you look from the side, my arm hangs from my shoulder. I'm not moving my arm forwards and backwards at this point. So it's all down to that movement of the weight and this rotation in my shoulder. Again, that feeling of quietness, stillness in the arms is very characteristic of Tai Chi and Qigong. So when we cease to feel that, it's an indication that it's time to come back to that general awareness of posture, the specific awareness of what's happening in the lower part of the body, feet and hips. Make sure that's working before we try and analyse any further. Now next time from the forwards position, leaving your hands facing backwards, come back, and this time just letting your arms pick up on the momentum that's building, the energy that's building, and following the movement. They naturally curve down, and so they'll swing up. We don't have to lift them. And if you look, most of the time, my arms are being pulled by my shoulders, but as I settle in my feet, they will swing. So I can only do this with one arm because in this position. Coming back, I settle into my hips, my hands swing through. So this is fisherman cast a net. And it's a great exercise to try and develop an interesting aspect, and again, particularly for people with more experience. We want to try and build these movements gradually from the inside out. So just see, as your arms swing through, where the sensations of movement, of expansion and contraction are in the upper part of your body. Your back, your sides, your belly, your chest. And these are the movements to gradually learn to bring the focus of your attention and your intention to build the range of the movements that we're doing just a little bit without straining, but from the inside out. So this is something, again, that we want to do with all of the movements. But as they get more complex, it's obviously going to be more difficult. So one of the things I really like about this particular exercise is it enables me to sort of investigate these aspects of the art without having to deal with sort of the complexities of some of the other undeniably lovely movements. Now, this time, coming forwards. Imagine a ball behind your arms, and you sit back and you're just pulling the ball in towards you, not lifting your arms, or at least not letting your arms come up at this point, because it will be a pull backwards. One of the things that we begin to notice here is that there's a dynamic quality, this sense of, the push up from the feet, rising up through your body like a wave coming up through your body. If your arms are too busy, they'll probably distract you from that feeling. But if the arms remain quiet, that feeling will begin to build, and that will gradually push your arms up. So you can think of it just as a kind of momentum, as an energy, as a direct push from the feet. Again, whatever idea, whatever view works best for you at any particular time. But one of the ways that it can be described is that there's this sense of a rising energy from the ground. So we're beginning to find alternative ways of moving, rather than with this exercise thinking that we have to lift our arms. We realise that what we do is we focus on the movements correctly, and we start to get a sense of our arms being lifted instead, perhaps. And again, this is a very simple exercise, but it's something that we want to apply in some of the later movements. This time, as your arms come up, turn them palm in, draw your elbows apart. Pigeon spreads its wings. You'll have the chest opened and then contract as you go forwards. And as the chest contracts, feel the opening across your upper back, which in its turn contracts. So we still have that strong dynamic of sinking into our hips, sinking into our feet, experiencing the push back and directing that forwards and backwards. Remembering that from the earlier exercises. But now we have a little bit more activity, shall we call it, quiet activity in the upper part of the body. So we're beginning to get a sense of how all parts of our body, one way or another, get involved in the movement. And this begins to produce this smooth quality, this flow through the whole of the body. And we could interpret this as energy flowing, balancing and harmonizing. This is a sort of in accord, if you like, with ideas that we find in Chinese medicine. Or we could just, without having to sort of analyze it, just experience that sense of well-being and togetherness that comes from this. Now this time, from the forwards position, bring your arms straight back, your elbows will still go out a little bit, and pushing wave. A little bit more directed and focused, a slightly stronger feel as we take that movement working through the body and sort of shape it into a push forwards. You can imagine pushing into water, or pushing against some kind of heavy but not totally immobile object like my first teacher often used to describe this as though you're pushing a wardrobe across the room or something like that. It again can point as a slightly stronger quality. Again, notice that our arms quite naturally curve upwards. I'm not trying to lift my arm, but the very fact that they're being pushed away from the body gives them this very gentle curve. And then combining that with the stepping that we did earlier. Step out with one foot, turn in that direction, plant the foot, push forwards. Coming back, take time to make sure you get your foot in position before you try and move your weight. Applying ourselves correctly to the detail of the movement, once again, really begins to occupy our attention, and as a result, beginning to get this calmer feeling, so that other thoughts, other things going on in our lives gradually just take a back seat for a while. And again, I think this is one of the great benefits of the art, that while we're practicing, we're able just to get a sense that we're, if you like, moving in this kind of very calm pool. One more time. And then rolling your fingers into a hollow fist. This time they stay at the same height, your arms just rotating gently. The idea of moving in the calm pool, we talk in Tai Chi about the stillness within the movement. It's quite an unusual one, I think. And we often don't really have a sense of stillness, of calmness, quietness, spaciousness to relate to. And I think that especially perhaps at this time of year, things can get very hectic. We think we don't have time to relax, we don't have time to settle. One of the things I think can develop these movements is that calm feeling becomes much more normalized, much more integrated. And this is something that can begin to be felt in our daily lives. And then open your fingers and sit back. Winding your arms back, pressing forwards. Do this one more time, going forwards, winding back, and as you come to the upright position and your fingers come in, turning the palms of your hands down, turning, easing forwards, hips dropping back, so gently lengthening through your back and your arms, turning so you Bring your arms across and back, drawing your arms around in a smooth circle. Now change direction. Just polishing the table. And again, don't rush at this. Just take a moment here to let yourself settle before you move up again. If you apply yourself to that, it will take a few moments to do initially. But again, this idea of just finding that stillness becomes a bit of a habit, and we realise actually it doesn't take that much time, if any. It feels almost instantaneous. Careful not to overextend. One more time. And then turning your hands palm up and with a gentle press down through your feet and your hips. This time the movement rising up through your body and then draining away. Remember, for the upward movement, as we discovered earlier, we want to push down into the ground. We want to keep that connection to the ground. So this exercise is called rooting down. It's the downward movement, the downward connection that creates the upward energy. Expanding, contracting. Keeping that feeling in the upper part of your body, turning your fingers out. And this time the expansion, pushing your arms away from the body. This is the wild goose, with this lovely image of the bird in flight, which may convey some kind of quality to mind and body. And then parting the clouds. And then letting your hands drop, letting the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders, sinking into the center, and then as you feel the expansion, focusing on one side, again your arm being gently pushed up, and then down as dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Bringing your attention to the center, sinking in the chair, and then with the push up on the other side. So it's a little bit more difficult than some of the movements we were doing earlier, but the same principles, the same connections from feet upwards through the body can be applied to this movement. Intention becomes important at this point. What are you thinking? Are you intending to lift your hand? Or is your intention more about that feeling of a rising movement expanding from the ground? Just giving shape to that movement, expression to that movement through your arm. One more on each side. And then bringing your hands up, lightly touching the side of your hips with the inside of your arm, sinking into the chair, and then again feeling the push up. Start pressing up a little bit, palms facing up, back down. Once again, lightly touching the side of the centre of your body, and then with the expanding movement, pushing out. What I found is that these internal movements, shall we call them, tend to make themselves most accessible with certain movements. Maybe find it with some movements and not with others, initially at least. Extend one foot, just rest on the heel. Knees still a little bit bent, easing forwards gently, feeling the lengthening in your back. Letting your hips drop back in the chair to draw you back up, expanding in the front of your body. Just scooping the sea, looking at the sky. This is quite a stretchy exercise. I'm doing it quite big, so you can sort of see what I'm doing. But go as far as you're comfortable moving. It could just be this, it's fine. Sometimes the smaller movements tell us more about what's happening within the body than the bigger movements. And we want to maintain that flow within the body. But it's worth finding ways to come to the upright position without that stiffness, without that strain in the upper part of the body. Now once again, roll your fingers into a hollow fist, and this time your head going forwards and upwards, drawing your arms over. This is grasping the tiger's ears. Again, lengthening through your back. But we should always feel that we could have moved a little bit further. And that helps to ensure that we maintain that spacious quality that allows movement within the body. Changing sides. and change it. And yeah, just preparing to move into the standing exercise. This, so once again, rubbing the hands together and tapping over your face, over your head and neck, down to one shoulder and your arm, and on the other side. Onto the upper part of your chest, down to your belly, and to your legs. And then just to get the muscles of your legs moving again, pushing your heels up. And circling around. And back the other way. Good, now if you want to stand, come into the standing position. And essentially, what we're trying to do is to reproduce those various qualities standing. Structurally it's different, but internally it's the same. So the basic posture is to stand with your feet directly below your hips, as much in line with the pull of gravity as you can manage. So your weight's being pulled directly down into your legs and your feet. And just, again, just gently tighten across your hips and lower back, and then releasing, feeling the pull of gravity down through your hips, through the centre of your body. Doing that a couple of times. And then as you get that feeling of releasing, just letting your hips drop back a little bit, being careful not to overdo the movement in your knees, and feeling the push up. And like in the chair-based exercises, bringing your hands around and rooting down. Rooting down gives us the stability from which we can move. The lower your centre of gravity, the more stable you're going to be. And although the knees are bending a little bit, remember what we found in the chair. The key to this is not how much you bend your knees, but whether you can get that feeling of releasing in your hips. And again, as in the chair base, turning your hands out so we can find some lovely variations in the upper part of the body. Wild goose, and we can follow that with parting the clouds. Just making sure you've still got in the back of your mind this sense of your posture, what's happening within the body, that sort of almost a picture of your body moving, anchoring your attention. And letting your hands drop. Now, turn one foot out, step straight forwards with the other foot. Again, transferring the weight, filling and emptying, this time very specifically from one foot to another. Taking a moment to settle in. And in that moment of settling in, we root down more, we release more, but we also have the opportunity to come back to that awareness of our posture, to anchor our thoughts. Our thoughts will often rush ahead. And I think particularly for people who are experiencing these exercises, it's like, oh, we've done this loads of times. So you can stand here and you're planning that trip to the supermarket, or you're trying to work out, you've got to buy a present for somebody. You get distracted. So make a particular point of bringing your attention back. And then coming into your back foot, raise your toes a little bit. Just feel how you settle back a bit more. When you go forward, you push your back knee in and you go forwards a bit more. So you're gradually bringing your body more over the supporting leg. So more of your weight goes down through that leg until eventually you're able to just move the empty leg. You can bring it in. If it's the back foot, you push out, you put the ball of the foot down, lower the heel, plant the foot, press gently into the floor. If it's your front foot, it's the same idea, but your heel goes down first, then the ball of the foot, then the plant. So you're doing this on thin ice. And what you're going to do is you place the foot, you test the ice before you commit the weight. And shake out. Now, try the same thing with the other foot forwards. We often find we're more successful at rooting down through one foot or another. As we get more familiar with this exercise and our understanding of what's happening in our bodies increases, we're sometimes able to analyze this to sort of, oh, right, now maybe you're holding tightness in the hip or a knee. Maybe you've got one hip or one knee with a bit of pain in it or something like that. And gradually, we can go some way down the road of ironing out those differences. Maybe not totally, but just getting more of a sense of what we might call balancing the body. Not physical balance in that sense, but this sense of, but both legs can play an equal role or a more equal role. Raising your toes and the heel. Giving yourself that moment just to reset each time your weight lands in one foot. And as you do that, stepping in, you may find yourself wobbling around a little bit with this. It's no surprise. It's a difficult exercise. You're spending time on one leg, moving slowly, giving yourself time to carefully place the foot. That's quite a difficult thing to do. So don't feel as you're a bit wobbly that it's some kind of failure. And then just step through, either forwards or backwards, depending on where you have the room. Just getting that sense of walking for its own sake. changing direction if you haven't done so already. And bringing your feet back. Okay, so bringing the upper body back into the movement. Have your right foot forwards. And once again, fisherman cast a net. Just letting your arms swing through. Feel the weight of your arms on your shoulders. And the progression of the movement from your foot up through your body, into your arms, and into the other foot. I'm going to make this a little bit more complex. So as you come through and your arms swing up, turn to your left and let that redirect the arms. This is called wind blows the willows. Again, a little bit like the wild goose in the sense that the expansion through the body pushes your arms away rather than thinking of lifting them up. But it will swing up, of course. But this way, this helps us to keep this sense of being nicely rooted. Okay, shake out. Same thing with your left foot forwards, keeping the width of your step, very gently sinking back, pushing forwards, letting that movement, that energy draw your arms through. Fisherman cast the net. This time as you arrive in the front foot, you turn to your right, wind blows the willows. And we're letting your hips release, drop down, letting your shoulders release. And then combining this with the stepping, you can turn your front foot out just a little bit if you like. And as you turn, bring in the other foot in. You could start off going backwards. Plant the foot, move forward. This is called dragonfly skims the water. Hips dropping back, remember. And if the next bit is comfortable for you, don't feel that you have to do this. You just raise your knee, rotate your hip. Don't let it break the flow of the movement. You could just do this quite easily. Only raise the leg if it's appropriate. This is not a competition. I'm going to change direction before I crash into the camera. and bringing your feet parallel. Okay, so go back to your chairs. Remember how this all started? It was just that simple sense of sitting with a degree of awareness of your posture. Maybe, hopefully, we can try for this properly aligned posture. And that sense of awareness helping to just settle our attention, to calm our attention, so that once again, these qualities of stillness, of calmness, become a normal part of our movements. And this takes time to build. But eventually we find that this will spill over into our daily lives. But they're never consistent. They come and they go. One image for these qualities could be the mountain, which often encapsulates many of these qualities. This last exercise is called Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain. So an emphasis not on always feeling these things, but on recognizing that we have a way back to them. So starting with your arms down, let your hips sink down, feel your arms being pushed away, and this time bringing them around as though you're going to hold a ball against your chest, drawing in and then returning, hands coming down, everything draining down through your body, arms dropping down to their full length, and then just starting again. And this can be a very personal thing. What brings you back? The image of the mountain, the memory of the movement, feeling of gravity on your hips and shoulders. Could be lots of things. But maybe just see if you can identify one or two things, very simple, that can stay with you, so that as you go through your daily life and we meet these frustrations and we feel that urge that we have to rush for some reason, we have something that can just remind us of these qualities of stillness and calmness that can be very much part of the movement. So one more time. And rest. Lovely. So, as always, thank you very much, everybody. And yes, please do feel free to get in touch if you have any comments or questions. But bye for now.